Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Brogdon from the Flutter team, and today I'm going to show you how to quickly bring a Flutter app to life with Cloud Firestore. If you haven't used it before, Cloud Firestore is a NoSQL document database that simplifies storing, syncing, and querying data for your apps at a global scale. It's also a great way to put a backend on a Flutter app without the hassle of spinning up your own servers. Let me give you an example. Say you're starting a band, and you and your bandmates can't agree on a name. You play remixed glam folk disco glitch metal and can't find anything that captures your essence. So you decide to do a survey. You'll make an app that displays a list of potential band names, and then you and your bandmates go out and show people the list. They tap on the names they like, and your app keeps track of how many people vote for each name. Putting together the UI for something like that is actually pretty quick in Flutter, as you may have seen in some of our other videos. But you also need a backend data source, shared between all the devices running the app. How can you build one and handle issues like security, connections going offline, and all the rest of that stuff? This is where Cloud Firestore can help. With it, you can create a collection that'll track the possible band names and their popularity. Then you integrate the Flutter Firestore plugin into your app and build your widgets using data from that collection. The app sends new data back in response for UI events like button taps, and Firestore handles the rest of the details. It persists the new info, sends updates to all the other instances of the app, and keeps everybody on the same page. Alright, so that's the plan. Let's imagine you've already done that first step of creating the UI with mocked up data. How quickly can we get it working for real with Firestore? Well, step one is to create a Firebase project. You could do this in the Firebase console. And I'm just going to call this one Band Name Survey. And click Create Project. And then a few seconds later, it'll be good to go. Cool. Now Firebase asks you to register the individual apps for your project. And here you can see me registering an Android one. There we go. Click Register App. And make sure you grab the config file right there when you do the registration. I'll show you what to do with that in a second. Once you have an app registered, you'll see this screen for your project, and you can use this button to add a second app. I'll use it to create an app registration for iOS. Flutter can build for both platforms, and if you plan to take advantage of that and release on both, you actually need to register two apps, one for each OS. One thing to note, when you create a new Flutter project in Android Studio or Visual Studio Code or whatever, you're asked for an organization name in reverse domain order. This, along with the name of the app, ends up as the package name for Android and the bundle ID for iOS. So when Firebase asks for those pieces of info, that's what they are. If you can't remember, just open the underlying Xcode project or Android manifest in your project source tree, and you can find what you need. Okay, with the apps registered, let's get Firestore going. I'm going to go over to Database under Develop and choose Firestore as my project's database. I'll leave it in test mode for now, hit Enable, and in a few seconds, once the spinner stops spinning, I'll have an instance of Firestore that I can start playing with. Cool. Now it's time to make a collection. I'll just call it Band Names and hit Next. And this will hold a document for each possible band name. Let's see, and for my first document, I'll just auto ID it, and I'll have the first field be called Name, and that's a string, and for the first name, how about Jam and the Angry Biscuits? There we go. And I need another field to hold the number of votes, so that's a number, and I'll start off with 0. Let me hit save here. And there's my record. All right, so that's one. Now let me go ahead and add 3 more records using a technique I like to call fast forwarding through pre-recorded footage. So there's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. My collection is ready. At this point, you've got a working back end. The next step is to get your app talking to it, and for that, you'll need the Cloud Firestore plugin for Flutter. All right, you may remember those config files we downloaded earlier from the Firebase console. Time to get them in place. I'm going to drag the Android configuration file, Google Services JSON, into the Android/app directory in my Flutter project source. Next, I need to get the Firebase Gradle plugin for Android in place. Now, Android Studio's Firebase Assistant can actually help you with this, but in case you're using Visual Studio Code or some other editor, I'm going to show you the manual way. Just open the build.gradle file you find in your Flutter project's Android directory, and then add this line for the Google Services plugin to the dependencies section. Then open the app level Gradle file at android/app/build.gradle, and all the way at the bottom, add a line to apply that plugin. And it's com, Google, GMS, and then Google-services. Cool. All right, for iOS, I'm going to open the underlying Xcode project created for each Flutter app. It's called Runner, and I'm going to open the workspace file itself, since Flutter uses CocoaPods. Once that's open, I'll drag the property list file downloaded from the Firebase console into the project, and it'll go right in that Runner folder. Cool. So that's the last platform-specific thing, which means I can spend the rest of my time in Flutter code. Let me open this project's pubspec file. This is the YAML file that lists a Flutter project's metadata, including its dependencies. And I'm going to add the Cloud Firestore plugin to the list. And once I've got that, I'll do a packages get from the tools/Flutter menu. That'll pull everything down and make sure I've got the Flutter code and native dependencies